You're listening to Around the Fire, an overland and off-road podcast brought to you by Northeast Adventure Company, New England's premier overland guide service. Driven by our passion for discovery, join us as we go to new heights in search of adventure. Welcome to Around the Fire, an overland and off-road podcast brought to you by Northeast Adventure Company, New England's premier overland guide service. Join us as we talk about our adventures, past experiences, and the ever-growing overland community. I'm Darren, and with me I have Chris and AJ, and today we're going to get into some overland gear, some recovery gear.
Definitely.
Some recovery scenarios. We get some questions about what do we use, what do we carry, what do we recommend that you carry, where do I start with my recovery gear? So that's what we're going to get into today. We have obviously the basic stuff that we all like to carry in our standard kits, like kinetic ropes, shackles, gloves, toe straps, everything that you kind of think of when you think of recovery. But as a company, we've come across plenty of gear. We've seen plenty of stuff used. We've tried plenty of stuff ourselves. So Chris, what do you kind of carry into your kit?
Sure. I think some of the basics that we end up using that anybody can use, because we do get that question quite a bit, which is, hey, I just got this new rig. What can I buy that I know that I can 100% use all the time, and I won't outgrow it, and it's something that if I get out there with a bunch of other people, I can use to be able to recover myself. Mm-hmm. For us, again, the big things are the shackles. So there's a couple different versions: soft shackle, hard shackle. Hard shackles have been around forever. One of the manufacturer names is Crosby, is what we really like to go with. Soft shackle brands that we can like right now are Treaty Oak is this one in particular, really high quality piece, and lasts quite a long time. Some of the basics of the shackles themselves, and people have some questions on what are the differences between the two, and kind of when would I use them and when wouldn't I?
What's good and what's not?
Yeah, kind of dive into that a little bit. Hard shackles have been around forever, and for us, I think, one of the big things that we find when using hard shackles is really based upon your recovery point. The recovery point itself is crucial to inspect that first to ensure that if you're using, or going to be using a shackle of some sort, that the recovery point is not damaged, which can happen quite a bit, or the actual manufacturing process doesn't leave it with some harsh edges that would kind of put the soft shackle. Or that it's
even sufficient for the pull.
Sure, and that's
force.
That's definitely something that has to be considered as well. There are some manufacturers out there right now for some of the bumpers and things of that nature that do leave a lot to be desired. So when it comes to that, you may end up having to use a soft shackle or something to be able to get to a better point to be able to recover from, because that recovery point that's kind of quote unquote built in is not sufficient. So the hard shackle, some of the nomenclature, this is, a lot of people call these D-rings. They aren't D-rings. This is called a bow shackle, for those kind of wondering that. The D-ring shackle itself, actually, or the D-ring, it's not a shackle, but is straight down generally. And this bow shackle, you can see kind of bows back in towards the center. So that would be the differences if you're looking at them. One way to kind of really indicate the differences between the two if you're looking online, or if you're looking at some place that may have these, or if you have a couple of different versions inside your kit. Go ahead and, for recovery purposes, take the D-rings out, or we won't be using those.
Stick with the bow shackles.
Yeah, stick with the bow shackles. So the bow shackle itself, this one here, I have been using this one quite a bit. There's the pin, and there's the shackle portion itself. We always kind of say, hey, listen, if you're ever in the position needing to use this, make sure that you never remove the pin until you actually need to use it. Because at this point, if you remove the pin and you lose the pin,
it's useless.
This is
is
an
now a
awesome
paperweight.
paperweight. Yeah. So again, make sure that that pin is in. When you do the recovery, though, for us, we'd like to screw the pin all the way in and then back it out quarter to a half turn. And that'll ensure that if there's any twisting that is done with the forces that are applied to the bow shackle, that it doesn't actually twist the pin and make it, very difficult or even impossible to get out. So the hard shackles, again, a lot of the basis is for what you're recovering and maybe what you're attaching to the shackle as well. I know some of the pulleys that we use, this gets put into a kit of some sort, and it gets banged around a lot or something of that nature. And some of the recovery or the points or something like of this, where you end up having a lot of rough areas or what have you, that's actually going to be detrimental to the soft shackle. It's a good opportunity to use a hard shackle instead. So that's where we would kind of suggest using that. Soft shackles, pretty new to the market now. They've been around for a little while and have done a fair amount of, have gone through a fair amount of testing. So we're really, I really enjoy the soft shackles. I think they give a lot of opportunities that we didn't have before, to be also to not only use for just recovery, but just holding things in place. Attaching to a frame, or maybe even going off like rock sliders, exactly. So it doesn't necessarily need 100% to be for using it in the recovery process as the focal point. It could just be, hey, listen, this rig's kind of tipsy-turvy,
and you're trying to pull it forward, you could stabilize the rig to a tree off the rock slider.
You got it, right? So that just helps just to get that kind of attached appropriately and make sure that it's not going to move on you. This is definitely a very good option for that. So I think for us, like I said, right now the soft shackles seem to be kind of our go-to. It is situationally based, but I tend to reach for this more often than not now. I know when I was doing some of the Bronco stuff earlier this past summer, one of the recovery points in the front, they actually had two. And the classes that I brought with me would know that, and I kind of explained it to them. I could show them specifically the molding. Basically, like I say cast, it wasn't, but where the section of the recovery point, there was kind of two sections there. One was really, really rough, which is exactly where you'd want to be able to use this. And the front portion of it was really rounded, and it was perfect for a soft shackle. And that is, for us, I mean, that was just a prime example of what to do and where these kind of shine specifically for each scenario.
If you run a soft shackle through something that has a really hard edge, hard corner, abrasive edge, you're going to put all that friction and abuse into that shackle, and it could shear it, it could damage it. It may not break it right then, but next time you go to use it, it could be damaged.
Right, and the bend radius too, right? So if you're in a position where the bend radius, you want to make sure that if it gets too small, the bend radius gets too small, then we're moving over and using the hard shackle.
Because like any aftermarket or even factory recovery points, they're going to be 3/8 to 3/4 inch thick steel with just a hole in it. You're going to be way under the minimum bend radius of that. So unless it's like a 1-inch pin or something like that, you probably don't want to use a soft shackle.
Right.
Because even a hole in 3/4 inch plate, even if you take the time to smooth the edges out, it's still not enough.
Agreed. Yeah. So again, it's situationally based, but we tend to really like these. But this definitely portion of my kit that I almost 100% go to, buy some. Again, our biggest thing that we always say is 1 is none and 2 is 1. So pick up a couple of each, make sure they're high quality, and put a little bit more money into making sure that your gear is high quality, so that when you end up going to use it, it's there and it's not going to break and it's not going to hurt somebody or yourself. So
the two main brands for hard shackles that I know is Van Beest with the green pin and Crosby is a red pin, I think, or is it all red?
I think they're a red pin, yeah.
But you definitely want to purchase one that is tested and rated for the rigging industry. Don't just buy your Amazon special from China. No offense, but they're just not tested.
Yeah, don't go cheap on your recovery gear.
It's not worth it.
The one thing that you're gonna really want when like it hits the fan is good recovery gear.
Well, what is
you want to
that?
be able to rely on.
Sure,
on
you
that.
know,
It's
if
all
you're
about
out
being
there
prepared.
and you don't have the availability of another set of equipment to be able to use to get you out, yeah, and it breaks.
Mhm.
I mean, again, the safety factor goes out the window for the most part, and now you're doing things that you just wouldn't normally do. So the likelihood of having high quality gear, it working for you is, and here's the thing, it's not that much more expensive. It
No.
really
No.
isn't.
Yeah, I think those are $17 or
Yeah,
something.
I mean,
like,
buy
guys,
once, cry
the
once.
only
Yeah.
problem with them is they don't come in a fancy color. But
Yeah.
That's exactly
Spray
right.
paint it.
That's
Yeah.
exactly
If you
right.
want it bright green, bright
Sure, I
red,
mean,
whatever,
good.
hit it with some spray paint.
So yeah, I mean, it's I think it in the end, I mean, the soft shackles, they do tend to be a little bit more pricey, but the versatility of what they are is pretty amazing. So it's in my opinion, well worth the extra.
And it's a good place to start for a basic recovery kit.
Absolutely.
You're looking at your basic kit as that's going to consist of some shackles, probably a strap of some kind, whether it's a kinetic rope or just a toe strap. And that's really right there is kind of all you
Yeah.
really need to get started. You and a buddy, a couple
Absolutely.
other people with rigs, and right there you're not going to perform self recovery, but you could at least help get each other out of a bind.
Mhm.
Definitely.
But
So that's my recommendation for the first portion of the kit.
kind of goes. Obviously, we go a little bit deeper. You guys go a little bit deeper with some of your gear. We've seen some kits on trips where, like we just said, toe strap and shackles. That's all you really need. But then we've also seen some pretty extensive kits where you get into the pulleys, into the X locks, cable or winch-line extensions, winches. A lot of people kind of think of recovery. They think of getting a winch on their vehicle, getting a bumper, getting all the good mounting points. But if you look at the reality of it, that's kind of like the next step beyond a basic kit.
It definitely snowballs as soon as you bolt the winch on the
Oh yeah,
front.
oh yeah,
Definitely,
most
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you're looking at, oh, I need this,
Yeah.
I want this, but all in the name of preparedness. So it's a good excuse to get new gear. But you're looking at a winch, and that kind of opens up your horizon for adventuring. You
Yeah.
can now go do solo trips. You don't have to. Maybe you're in a situation like we've been. One person gets up a hill, the next person can't make it up that hill. You can't safely really do a pull with just a K rope up a hill. You could, but it might be a little bit sketchy if you get too much of a yank on there.
Less controlled.
Yeah.
So you can use your winch line or use your winch, and that kind of goes into, do you use steel cable? Do you use synthetic line? Both are good. Both have been used quite frequently. Steel cable obviously has been around a lot longer.
Yep.
They both have their benefits. It's kind of user preference at this point. We, I think, mostly run synthetic line on all of ours, but that's just for the sake of how often we use them. It's a little easier to work with. It's less heavy. It's easier to manhandle when you're pulling line out in the mud. Obviously, with a winch, you want good gloves. You want to make sure that your gear is taken care of. Check your line. Get familiar with your setup. Know how to use it. Know how to put it in free spool. All that.
Make sure it goes into free spool.
Yeah, make sure it goes into free spool.
Yeah. Look into clocking your winch if you can't reach the control.
Mhm.
It's easy enough.
Move that control box too.
Yeah, get the
contactor
control box
get that
out of
yeah.
out of the water, out of the mud. But it just kind of, like AJ said, it kind of all snowballs a little bit. You get into kind of the more advanced stuff too. So say you get synthetic line on that fancy new, like 12,000 pound winch,
Badlands.
and you're out in the woods and you damage it a little bit, and you get home and you're like, oh, what do I do? What do I do, AJ? What do I do if my winch line is all tore up?
So you can learn some splicing techniques. This is a tapered Mcdonald Brumble splice. We call it a taper. It does have a taper because it actually tapers into the line. You can see it gets thicker towards the end here. It's a locked eye, so this cannot come apart. You don't need to tie this with the what's that called? Splicing line?
Yeah,
Stitching. Because this does lock on itself. It can creep, which would be the reason why you'd want to stitch it in, but I haven't had an issue with that yet. This is a bridle, so you could use this with 2 recovery points and hook up a winch or strap to the center of it to kind of spread that load over the recovery points on your bumper or the frame. Some tools that you need for that is Factor 55 has a nice, they call it the fast fid. It's basically just a needle and a bird cage to help you do the splice. That's all it is.
You just
Measuring
helps you
tape.
feed it in, right?
Yeah.
Feed it through itself.
Yep. I learned how to do it from the Safe Extract app. That's pretty useful.
Great tool.
There's all kinds of different features of that app as far as learning techniques and the calculating your mired factor in recovery situations. If you're just not sure the actual load of what you're looking at, you can add it up with that. That's a handy tool.
A lot of guesstimates in there, but it gives you a general idea, and then you can always go, you know, a little bit higher. Just kind of shoot a little bit higher to be able to make sure that you have that safety factor built in there too.
The synthetic rope we use is the Samson Amsteel Blue, either 3/8, 7/16, or 1/2 inch. I don't know if anybody has 1/2 inch, but the weight rating just goes up with size, obviously. It's a 12-strand Dyneema. Cutting it, you either need a ceramic knife or I use the Kevlar shears. This is normally used for fiber optics. They're about $20, definitely worth it. Some measuring tape and a Sharpie, and you're there. You can get into it.
Definitely.
So bridles, winch-line extensions, the winch line itself. Obviously, you need an eye on the end. You could even get into soft shackles. I just buy the soft shackle because those are tested and you know they're good.
Yeah.
If you're just doing some eye splices, you know, with some practice, they can definitely be reliable.
And the repair is huge too. I mean, just to have that kind of peace of mind. I mean, I don't know what the kit costs. What is it?
$50.
Yeah, $50. We bought all ours from Jimmy over at Pine Grove Outfitters. Great guy to work with. And we just, you know, it's just there just in case. And I mean, it takes you probably, 15 minutes to kind of look down through, get a real general idea of how to fix it. YouTube and it's Safe Extract if you want to. They have some great stuff on their site. And then at that point, it's just, being able to, like you said, practice with it, make sure that you feel comfortable doing it. But I've definitely been in a situation a couple of years ago now where my winch line broke. And, I did some sketchy stuff to be able to get me out. And the 15 minutes that it probably would have taken me to repair that line would have been a much better option than what I did. And, we
it's
grow.
always the first 5-10 feet of the winch line that takes the most abuse, just because it's always sitting on the outside of the drum, so you get UV damage. The eye splice does get abrasion no matter how nice you are to it over time. So just being able to cut that 10 feet off and have a fresh end.
Yeah. And again, a lot of people will end up, fixing their line using, if it has a hook on it or something like that, to a shackle that's hanging off the front.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of people do that. And that leaves that section foot out through 2-3 feet out, right out there in the elements. So
it's always going to break right there.
Exactly.
Getting filled with mud, dirt,
Sand.
sitting in the sun.
Yeah.
That's one of the downsides with synthetic line is it's just it's so much more prone to damage, but for the pound for pound compared to steel cable, how much stronger it is. But it does take another level of care. You need to, if you have a synthetic line on your winch or whatever, you want to pull it out every now and then, wash it out, re-spool it appropriately, check that thing up and down. You should do the same thing, obviously, with steel cable.
Right.
Pull it out, make sure it's not
rusted together. You want to clean it and oil it.
Exactly.
Mix spurs, all that stuff.
Yeah, because that's just kind of part of the game of making sure that your equipment is there and ready for you when you're ready to use it. So
you definitely want some heavier gloves when you're working with steel line, because if you get
big time
a little strand sticking out, that will tear your hand open. It's a bad day.
Absolutely, yeah. And just the winch line itself or the synthetic line with anything that you're using, just make sure that the recovery points or even like the winch line as it feeds through
The fair lead.
the fair lead,
Mhm.
excuse me. Make sure that fair lead, if it's a roller fair lead or even just a regular Haas fair lead, it doesn't have burrs. It has something that this line is going to end up getting chewed up with. Because it's one thing for the abrasion to happen, right? Just normally with the line running back and forth, even if it was on free spool. But as soon as you start applying forces to that, and you have a couple little bit of nicks inside there,
It'll tear right through
it'll
it.
just tear that thing right
It's
out.
like
So
a hot knife through butter.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you have steel line on your winch and you want to change out for a synthetic, you got to really look at that
Oh
to
yeah.
make sure any burrs on the drum
the drum
and your
is
fair
huge,
lead. It's probably worth just replacing your fair lead. The drum, you can take a file to it, smooth it out, and wrap it with Gorilla Tape before you
that's what I did.
secure your line.
Yep. Take that steel line off, smooth it all out, sand it down, clean it up.
Yep, it's a very good idea to do that because again, a little bit of preventative maintenance now will help in the field so that there's no issues. I mean, your confidence level will rise dramatically, and I know that a lot of the recoveries that we end up doing aren't substantial. But in the same vein, I've definitely been in some situations where it's like, oh my gosh, like we're in it, and the last thing I want to be worried about is kind of the underlying, hey, is my winch line decent enough to be able to pull somebody out
Oh yeah.
because I haven't been taking care of it or because it's, there's birds on the line, there's kinks. I mean, just take that out of the equation and not have to even think about that. Because again, once we start getting into those situations where your stress level rises, you start,
You're
losing.
tired, wet, hungry,
Absolutely.
it's raining.
I want to go
and
home. I'm done with this.
You're dragging a Jeep a mile, down the trail or something like that.
Exactly. So just be that person that takes the time to be able to make your equipment work for you the most efficient way possible.
Yeah. And some of that comes in with just storage, proper storage.
Absolutely.
Obviously, you kind of want to have all of your gear together. It's easier to grab, but with the synthetic line, knowing that it's prone to like abrasive damage, maybe don't store it in with all the metal pieces and bits and stuff. Kind of have it a little bit separated. Put them in the same bag, but maybe section it off a little bit, or put a divider in there. Wrap them in a towel or something.
Yeah, ARB has a great setup of comes with it's just a very simple basic bag recovery kit. And one of the big things that I saw when I was using that was they did have compartments for certain things, so you could section off those things, and that was really, really nice to be able to have that. Just because, again, you don't think about it when you're just tossing things in there and you're ready to go. But yeah, that is huge to be able to have that kind of, so you don't have to. The compartments are.
There's also Nick at Adventure Trail Gear. He has the recovery.
He has
bags
really good bags.
And, tons of different pouches and stuff. You can organize your stuff that way.
Yep, great idea. Nick's good people.
So like we've covered a little bit about the kind of the gear that we like, some of the stuff that we recommend and that we use, and kind of your basic kit. But sometimes you don't have to have all of this stuff. You don't need all the big line and whatnot. Sometimes really all you need is something underneath the tire. Stack some rocks, grab some traction boards. The amount of times that we've gone to pull winch line, but really all you need is to get that one wheel that's off the ground, get a little traction underneath it, stack some traction boards, and you're
just back
good
up
to
and
go.
take a different line.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Turn the tires. A
Yeah.
lot of people kind of forget about that sometimes too. Is that you can use different sides of your tire, use that grip that's there. Just even a simple turn all the way, full lock left or right, drivers, passengers can really put you in a great spot where just that little bit gets you enough to be able to get the traction you need.
I'd say with any recovery scenario, the main tool you want to rely on is just your brain. Use your head.
Oh yeah.
And
Don't get stressed. Don't get worked up. Take your time.
Don't get worked up. Actually, think your way through a problem. What's going to happen if something fails? What happens when something goes wrong? Think about those things.
Make sure no one's in a dangerous spot. No one's behind the rig when they shouldn't be behind the rig. No one's stepping over lines or in front of the vehicle or underneath the vehicle or.
I think that's what you get with, the experience that comes with kind of like companies like ours. You have that ability to kind of know that the people immediately we're going to start kind of working on the problem, but it's a very calm, easy way that we're going to work through things. And, it just makes everyone just feel much more comfortable with the
Oh, yeah.
situation in hand, and it makes also, I think, a much more kind of better learning environment for people to kind of know that even if they weren't to come out with us, that if they're going out with themselves or with a group or what have you, then they have, what they see from us will provide them with, more of a sense of stability when they get out there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just being able to, like you said, kind of break it down, take a deep breath, and it really does work to your advantage to be able to kind of just think clearly. Because I think tunnel vision sets in sometimes for people, and they're thinking about 10 steps ahead with the recovery gear and how do I want to do this and how is it going to work, when sometimes you don't even need any of that. Again, like I said, your brain is definitely the best tool that you have to be able to kind of work your way through this stuff and use it.
And we do, shameless plug, we do offer classes, fundamental off-road recovery classes. So I believe they're all sold out at this point, but keep your eye open, you never know.
Yeah,
Ticket might come up. Ticket might come up for sale. We might get a free weekend, open up another class somewhere. And it is just, obviously we're a little biased on that. We want you to come to our trips. We want you to experience the things that we experience, but just having that, like you said, having someone else there to kind of help work you through it,
Right.
and kind of get the ball rolling of, oh, this is how I would do this. I didn't even think about it like that. And even we've seen in some recovery situations of, like, we're thinking steps ahead, like you said, I need to do this, I need to do this, and I need to do that and this. And well, what happens if this goes wrong? And then you have someone off to the side speak up and, oh, hey, well, what if instead of pulling from that tree, what if we just bring this rig around and they can pull from this direction? Or, hey, there's a really good tree over there and I have a pulley. I could set up, and that way you're not dragging across these rocks. We can just pull you straight out of the hole.
It's not always going to be a simple situation where you pull your winch line out to the tree that happens to be directly in front of you, and in 5 minutes you're out of the situation. It can be a couple hours of trying one thing. Nope, that didn't work. We got to try something else, and being creative with the whole process.
Definitely.
Yeah, well, we've had a few scenarios, I'm sure, of some pretty good recovery situations.
Yeah.
So
when you're ratchet strapping logs to frames to drag a vehicle out of the woods.
how was that?
Things have escalated
Evolved very quickly. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's
Good
dive
times,
into
though.
that one. How did that go? AJ, I know that you were there. That was old iron last year.
Yep. So it was a red Toyota pickup. The lower control arm was rotted out, unknown to the owner.
Yeah, unbeknownst to the owner.
Yeah. It wasn't so much neglect. It was just the previous owner of the vehicle had, slapped a bunch of spray paint on there, so it looked fine. But on the inside, it was completely rotted out, and it snapped on the trail about a mile up from the road. So we strapped a log to the frame and dragged it out backwards using various redirects, winching, and a K-rope. It was quite a process.
All in beautiful weather, it sounded like.
Oh, yeah.
No,
beautiful sunny.
No, it was not
sunny
that.
and 75.
No, it was pouring rain, super bad. Like the worst case scenario, we were in it.
Rivers flowing down the trail. That's
you
the best time to do
hook up the
recovery.
winch for a redirect, and you're just swimming underwater to get this thing hooked up. It was a mess.
Yeah, that's the
And
best.
like I said, that's when that stuff happens, right?
That's when you have to lean on your training and do
and
it
your
the right
gear.
way.
Know that your gear is gonna
be there for you. Hold up for sure.
Don't get too worked up just because you're sitting in a small stream flowing down the side of the trail.
You'll be fine. But just don't get the water in your
You will
ears.
definitely learn to pack more socks the next time.
Oh, big time. So yeah, we had a scenario that we had set up for a training last year where Daryl's Jeep was pinned between trees. And just kind of going back towards the using your gear in a way that maybe you're not thinking about using it. We were pulling him one direction with his winch, but we had a soft shackle hooked up to another vehicle, and they were pulling him by his rock slider to keep the vehicle from rolling over.
Yep.
So obviously that's kind of a situation where having that soft shackle enabled us to be able to do that type of recovery, because you can't fit a hard shackle around the rock slider. You could take the line and wrap it, but it's not safe. It's not ideal and not very controlled. So having an array of gear, of equipment to your disposal, and just being able to kind of think about it in a different way. Like AJ said, your mind is your biggest tool when you're out there, of hooking it up on a spot that maybe you don't think about hooking it up at all.
Well, that also
all the
goes
time,
back
and-
to just not going alone. If it's a really hard trail, like you
Yes.
want at least a second vehicle there, because you might think you have all the recovery gear you need, but you get in a scenario like that where you have to stabilize from one side and you're pulling the other way. Like you need,
Multiple rigs.
two kits basically, and you don't want to carry that all the time.
You may need a ride home.
Yeah.
You may need
Yeah,
a ride home.
you may be sleeping in the
Maybe
Jeep
easier.
for the night. Who knows?
Yeah, that's another point. I mean, even though you plan on just going out for a day trip, bring some extra warm clothes, maybe your sleeping bag, because
Yeah. A couple snacks, some water.
things can evolve.
Really?
Yep.
Absolutely, yeah.
Good walking shoes.
Good walking shoes are good.
Yes, definitely. Yep. A
That's
positive
A
attitude.
positive attitude. Gloves.
Plus, extra socks.
Yeah. Extra socks. Always bring extra socks.
Because if your feet are dry, it ain't that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. You can change your socks and drink some water.
Life is
Good. Good to go. That's what the Army tells me. But yeah, that's kind of our recommendations, the stuff that we've kind of run into, and how we use the gear, the way we use it. We are always getting new gear. We're always trying it out, trying different things, learning new things of how to use the equipment that we already have. And we are always looking for opportunities to be able to get out there and kind of try it out. And we recommend that you guys do too. Like, don't just buy the gear and hope that you never have to use it. Get out there, get familiar with it.
Yeah, get hands on with it.
Even if you don't need to use it, go out in the woods, set up on a trail, and pull your winch line
Sure.
in a controlled environment of.
And we'd love to see it.
Yeah.
If there's something out there that you guys, see, or if it's a new item. I know there's a few things that have been kind
big
of
time.
popping up
Yeah,
lately.
share it with us.
That are kind of giving us, hey, we're not sure on this. Can you guys test it out? I mean, we have those opportunities too sometimes, so we can, we're more than happy to kind of work it into a controlled environment, but I think for us, it can benefit our clients and our customers just as much. So we're more than happy to kind of work through that. And if it's something that's workable, then we'll grab that and we'll see if we can get it tested up for you. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. And if you have questions or something of that nature, we'd really like to, because we're on top of a lot of stuff, but we don't see everything. So we also want to be able to evolve in the industry, because I think there's a lot of things that are again popping up. Who knows? There lots of things kind of cross themselves in the industries as well. So we've been using rigging stuff for a while just because of that's been around for ages and it's worked. So we take a bunch of stuff from there, and who knows what the next best thing will be. And I'd love to be able to test that out and try to take a look at it and see what we can do and see if it's a quality piece. So
yeah. Share the wealth, share the knowledge. If you come across something, let us know. Let everybody know.
I love buying new stuff.
Yeah. Any excuse for new gear?
Don't tell Katie, but it's like,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh no! I need this. I need the rear winch to make the truck run better.
Yeah.
You need that.
Oh,
Otherwise
this-
it won't
It
move.
levels out.
Yeah.
The weight.
Yeah. That's not a turbo. That's just an extra AC blower.
Yeah, it's a new water pump.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what we want.
Anyone else have anything you want to share? Any cool stories? You got anything fancy?
No, I think we're. Like
How
I said,
about the shorty strap over there? That thing's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think
I was looking at that.
there's a couple pieces here that we have that we can kind of dive into. There's the shorty strap seems to be one of the cool kind of newer pieces. I don't have it here, but I wanted to mention it. Also, something called they consider like an infinity strap. So a lot of people use that for like bridling. So These are kind of neat. These are relatively inexpensive, same type of ordeal, really high quality. You can see that these are stitched up pretty hot and heavy on this. So these are, again, Factor 55, pretty sweet company. You can use these for a multitude of different things, whether it be that you're, if you need to be able to wrap this around the frame, or if you don't end up having a soft shackle, or if it's not going to, the width of this is what really helps benefit here. So even if it's, using a stinger, I've seen it attached to a stinger on a front bumper, just to be able to provide some stability. And we're not looking to rip the whole stinger off the front end. But that,
just to keep the front end down, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that can be used with the shorty strap. These are really cool for that. So
it's good for using with a high lift jack too.
Sure.
Right? Run it through the slots in your wheel if you don't have a point to lift with.
Definitely.
Right. The high lift has the attachment with the little hooks for like you could use for a steel wheel, but pretty much everybody's running aluminum wheels with pretty big gaps, so those aren't going to work. But you can slide the shorty strap through there and just hook it around the hook of the high lift.
Sure.
To pick a wheel up that way, stack the rocks.
One thing I've kind of been introduced to recently, and this is more of a cosmetic thing mostly than anything, but so this piece here, this is like the perfect size for like your front bumper. So for those people who are looking to have like a stock front bumper and they don't want to ruin the front bumper, right? You can use this as kind of an extension to get back to that recovery point, and then use this to kind of pull yourself to pull this forward, and that'll actually allow for you to have a little bit of extension on there and not rip the front bumper off too or dent it. So it kind of spreads the load across the front here. It's like I said, it's a very cosmetic thing, but I think it could work for sure. So definitely a cool piece.
Factor 55.
Yep, we grabbed a couple of these.
Not a sponsor, but if you're watching,
Yeah, we would love that.
we're always open.
We mentioned a few times the pulley, right? A lot of people call it a snatch block. AEV has decided to label it a snatch block. Yeah, these are great. I mean, they're obviously the redirect is probably one of the biggest things.
A simple double line pull.
Just a double line pull will also give you some added capacity to be able to use more of what you're using or your output of your winch.
And that's hooking the snatch block, the pulley, to a tree, and then running your line back to your own vehicle.
Sure. Yeah, that's one example. But yes, technically what ends up having to happen is the line needs to be fed from the source, right? And then through the pulley and then back to that source. So that's how you're going to get your doubling factor. So yeah, again, I've used these, I don't know how many times I've used multiple. Spanish Burton is one example. That's a little bit probably deep for what we're trying to get into today, but look into that. That's a sweet recovery.
You're going to need that for the Stewie.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. There's going to be
double line Spanish Burton.
Yeah. That
just bring all the gear.
Just bring it all out. Yeah. Unless I have, for some reason, I've decided to invest in that 25,000 pound winch. It'll come to me. Somebody makes yellow. It's yellow. Anyways, yes. Yeah, awesome. So that probably will happen, but yeah, no, that. But then again, you have to have a pulley that's sufficient for that as well. I mean, that truck weighs
all of your gear gets bigger at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No.
Yeah, you're not using these soft shackles. On them.
I'm pretty sure that my
LMTV.
tree yoke.
I think he does make
strap.
a super.
I think it's 1.25 inches. I can't be 100%, but I
He's
think
got
it's
some
1.25
big ones.
inches that I have, and that thing is just a giant. It's awesome. So, but yeah, the pulleys are great. So definitely invest in one of those as kind of like your next step. The redirects, we find ourselves using that probably the majority of the time, because a lot of the time when you're stuck, you don't need that much. You just need a little bit of pulling power to get you the traction needed to be able to pull through or get over that obstacle.
Conveniently, the good tree to winch off of is never in front of your vehicle.
That too, right?
It's somewhere else.
Right. And that, I mean, here's the thing. I think a lot of things, and I'll touch base with this just because I think it is a part of the topic of conversation. Me in particular, I'm not sure about you guys, but I know that I have kind of talked with some individuals who have been in the business for a while, and there's this kind of concept of using a roller fair lead with synthetic cable. And I think with the reasonings behind doing that is because the thought process is that if you ever get into a position where you're using synthetic line and it happens to bind or bunch or get itself tied up inside that roller fair lead, then you're not doing the pull correctly. You need to change something. Right. And that is where this is going to come into play the majority of the time. So for me, I think the abrasion factor that is kind of not removed, it's still there, but is lessened by using the roller fair lead, unless you do what I did, which is ram it into a rock, which now becomes a Hosfield lead.
Oh yeah, a DIY Hosfield lead.
You know, we'll go. We don't have to talk about that
But
right
even
now.
a jammed up roller fair lead is probably, it has more radius than your average Haas fair lead.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's still better.
And some of these manufacturers of these, again, these bumpers and stuff.
When the winch is pointing down.
Yeah.
Like mine.
Come on now.
Like, yeah.
So with that,
Not ideal.
again, your next investment will probably want to be one of these to be able to put yourself in the best position possible for those recoveries. So I would highly suggest a good pulley is not cheap. They're not going to be cheap, but they are. If you have a pulley that is cheap and it explodes with the tension and the forces that are applied,
that's a lot of weight coming on you.
Get out of the way. People think that hard shackles, are a bullet. I mean, look at these two.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
So that's the AEV Master Pull makes some good ones, I believe, and Safe Extract has a beautiful one, but it is pricey.
Yeah, Safe Extract is definitely.
Is there any other brands?
Sexy. Those are the only three that I know of that have.
The ARB one isn't bad, right?
I did see that the ARB does have a little bit better specifications than this one does, but I haven't actually used it, so I don't know. I can't answer that. But yeah, these tend to be right now. Those are the three that seem to be the top.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Quality
gear again. Yeah, I use that extra paycheck just to invest in something that's going to is not because I go back to the 2-line pull. So if you're doing that, the forces that are applied to this, especially if you have a 12,000-pound winch, and again, we can dive into that a little bit later as to actually how much force is being applied based upon how much line is out, and how much you have, how much line is on the drum. But yeah, if you get up into those top end ranges, this has to hold up.
Right.
Because if it doesn't, it's going to be out of control.
And it's always going to be the worst case scenario where, you want to be on the last layer of the winch for the most pulling power, and that's when something's going to fail. So.
Absolutely. And I think that's you have to think about the, what is the weakest point, right? And with some of these types of things, if they aren't kept up or if they aren't maintained, you
want to look at what is the fuse in the situation that you're rigging up. And what's going to happen when that does let go.
Right. Yeah, which is, just dangerous. So pulleys are awesome. We can dive into that in another episode. But those are definitely cool pieces of equipment to have. Winchline Extension, I know we kind of breezed over that a little bit. Winchline Extensions are just awesome. They, again, are a little bit pricey, but in the same vein, it can put you in a great spot for either needing the extension or getting that winch in the sweet spot. And that's kind of where also this guy comes into play. We could probably do an entire episode on just this.
That could be a whole entire show.
Because these things are awesome. This is called an X-Lock, and it's made by a Safe Extract. And really, really great piece of equipment here. If you have the opportunity to put this in your kit, do it. This is probably towards the tail end of things, but these are really incredible. And if you have the opportunity to be able to learn how to use these, do it. Really, really sweet.
Look them up. Look them up on YouTube.
Yeah,
learn about them.
Safe Extract has an awesome website. They have the app. I don't think this is specifically in there, but
yeah, it is. It's in the Learning Center how to use
awesome. Awesome. Cool. So, again, just kind of breeze over and get a general idea of how these work. And if you want us to be able to dive into a lot of the stuff that you see here a little bit deeper, we don't have any problem with that. We're just trying to do a little bit of an overview on this stuff. But this is a great piece of kit that we all invested in as a company for the staff because it really it makes a huge difference.
So I know I've used them for shortening a winch line, taking up the slack in a winch line, so you're on that last layer, giving you maximum pull, belaying a vehicle down a hill.
Crazy.
That's just wild.
Yeah, where you can use it to take in all of the weight of a vehicle and be able to control it with nothing but your hands.
Yeah.
That's
Human.
impressive.
I mean,
Very
we've
impressive.
had 100-pound people essentially just stand at the top of a hill and have this 6,000-pound vehicle just
guided down by their hand.
And it's really cool to be able to see that working, and this is just that one piece of equipment that kind of makes that work. So the amount of technology, time, R&D that went into this, great job, guys. Like, this is a really cool piece. So what else we got? We didn't go over any of the straps. I think kind of everybody knows the differences. AJ, you want to slide me that one? So there's obviously differences between straps and rope. This is a rope here. This is a kinetic rope. So this is probably one of the first things you're going to end up running into. I don't know if you guys want to go over this or you want me to do it.
Go for it.
All right.
You're on a roll.
Yeah, apparently.
Keep going. Keep it going.
The strap itself, I mean, there's the rope and then there's the straps that are basically look like this. Right, and there's two different versions, so I'll keep it kind of
keep it short.
G-rated, yeah. So the straps come in two different versions. There's kind of a lot of people call them like a Snatch Strap, and that's considered a kinetic strap, right? So that applies
Static.
and then they're static.
Yeah.
So that is your typical what a lot of people kind of consider like a toe strap, right? So this would be considered that here. All right, this doesn't have really any give to it. There's a little bit there, but a lot of the kinetic energy that you're going to find in like a K rope or something like that, or your snatch strap, is based upon the recovery of a vehicle using kinetic energy, and that one of the things when I was teaching this and the Bronco stuff that I had the best way to kind of explain it was when you kind of use this, you're not looking to, hook this up and then leave tension or leave no tension, right? And then yard on it and yard somebody out. That you're just asking for trouble, and you're going to look to just basically peel off anything that's attached.
Yeah, rip that truck apart.
So you're asking a lot of not only the strap, but the actual recovery points as well. Right. So pull tension on this, use it as just kind of a nice, slow, easy go. And sometimes, again, just like the winch, it's all you need, right? You just need maybe just a little bit to get you by. The kinetic is a little bit less controlled, but in the same vein applies a ton of force. And to go back to what I had kind of the easiest way for me to get people to get their head wrapped around it was I took a rubber band and I snapped it. I took it apart, put it in two. And or one, and I stretched it out, right? And that is kind of the basis behind that. And you stretch out the rubber band, and what it wants to do is go back to its normal, which is just if you were to let go of one end, it wants to go back to just being, a rubber band that's been cut in half. Mm-hmm. And so that is the kind of concept behind, the K ropes and the kinetic straps is the fact that when you pull that apart, when you start to pull those pieces apart, the forces now say, hey, listen, I want to multiply to be able to add a ton of force now to be able to get back to status quo or just a regular rubber band as you're holding it in your hands. So,
but it's less instantaneous, so it's going to spread that load out, basically.
Yeah. It takes some of the force off of the vehicle.
It's a little more gentle on the recovery points.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yep. While providing a ton of force.
Oh yeah.
It will, suck a vehicle. I remember this is some years ago now. We had an XJ with a trailer, and it was mired over at VOT, one of the first VOTs. And boy, did we need some recovery to happen. And the only thing that we had at the time, I think we were one of the only people that were at VOT at the time, that were setting up initially right before we went for camp, and we were at camp. And we had a TJ. And it was like, okay, well, we got the XJ and the trailer, which obviously weighs more than the TJ.
Yeah.
Hooked it up, had the proper recovery point on the back of the TJ, and literally within seconds, you could see the whole thing work beautifully. Like you could see the tension build up, you could see the forces applied, and it sucked that XJ with that trailer out of there like nothing. And it was one of the first times that I had actually stood back and actually watched it go down, and I was like, that's incredible. Like if you have the opportunity to buy a kinetic strap, definitely invest in them. We'll go back to the whole concept again of the amount of force that's applied with one of these is substantial. So if you're buying a kinetic strap that's going to have that kind of force, you need to buy a quality strap.
And you need to
really
make sure your vehicle is good to go.
Absolutely.
To put that kind of force into it.
Absolutely, yeah. No, let's leave the trailer balls out of this. Let's leave the nasty recovery points when you've got the rotted back end of a frame that's not, capable. Because again, the forces that this applies is substantial. So get a good quality, kinetic strap, and make sure that your recovery points or your areas that you're attaching to are sufficient, so you don't. It's one thing to be able to get the truck out, but if you tear it in half in the process, it's a little.
That's a job half done. You can't really,
So the K-rope is also useful as a winch-line extension, and it kind of has a nice feature because of the elasticity of it. It'll keep some tension on the line and reduce the shock load as you're winching. The vehicle's moving around. That's really what kills winches and rips them off, is just going to be shock load.
Yep. And we can, again, kind of dive into that a little bit if you guys want to. But
we can go into another episode of kind of getting more into the specific gear and whatnot. This kind of just helps give you guys a little bit of an overview of everything and kind of answer some of those questions of, I wonder what are those guys carrying their rigs? What should I get? I'm getting into it. I want to know kind of where should I start to kind of get my feet wet of getting into the recovery gear world. But we'll dive more into some of this stuff a little bit more in a future episode. Let us know down below or send us a message or anything. Hit us up on all social media at Northeast Adventure Company. We have a Discord now on the Northeast Adventure community, as well as on Facebook, Northeast Adventure Community, Instagram, YouTube, everything.
If you can't reach us, there's a problem.
We've got plenty of outlets to find us. So if you've got any questions, you want to let us know about a new piece of gear, like Chris said, just kind of keep it rolling. Let us know. Send us a message. Drop a comment. But that kind of covers the broad expanse of recovery gear. Thank you guys again for tuning in and joining us around the fire. Did we talk about your favorite piece of gear? Did we talk about something maybe a little bit less than you'd like to hear? Let us know. If you have a good story that you want to tell us, that one recovery story that's your go-to thing to tell around the fire, drop it down below and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I think that's what all the cool kids are saying now.
I've heard that.
So
Ring that bell.
ring that bell for a notification. But all right, we'll catch you guys next time.
Cool, appreciate it.
Around the Fire.
Thanks, guys.